The virus kind of hit suddenly, and I think nobody was really ready for it. There was a lot of fear, isolation, just unknown, and I think it was sudden and difficult for a lot of people to take all that in. In more detail. I mean, we're stuck at home. We're all trying to figure out our lives in working and teleconferencing and Zooming all in the same house, and that's difficult. But with all that, kind of like pushing us all into our own little cubby holes has come. We've lost a little bit of that feeling of the community of our church. That's something in hindsight. I recognize it's something that we kind of really miss and have lost. So I remember the last service before it officially came down. The virus was kind of going out there, and church service was about cut in half, and I was kind of like tearing up that day, thinking there's something big that's going to happen. And before I knew it, they said, well, you guys can't even worship, and I just knew at that point that things were going to change. And so I think there's been a lot of stress. It's been, in a way, we've kind of like almost gotten used to it. It's like this either mid or even sometimes high level stress of like, what's going on? How do we respond to that? So I think living in a sense of stress has been difficult. But I think in coping with that, it's been we've kind of relied on our our immediate family unit, and have tried to find ways to stay connected with the church. And when it was okay to come back, we came back as quickly as we could, and masked up and tried to adhere to the rules. But I think for me, it's been kind of coping has been trying to recognize the stress, trying to like lower it, as best I can, and then trying to stay connected with the church, with my faith and the community as best I can. Another great saint, Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I read his book recently, and he said that when he was a little kid and he got really scared, he would go to his mother, and she would say, when you're scared, look around at the situation, but look and see that there are always helpers. People are still, running businesses and serving the community, and battling it in the hospitals, and I think that's an indication of God's presence. We just heard from Father Derek talking about people who hear God's voice and desire for us go out and make a difference in the world, and I think in Fred Rogers' case, it's the helpers, and when I look around, I see that.
So honestly, the most difficult thing about everything that's happened in the past year has been relational or negotiating relationships. So I'm an introvert. I like my quiet space. I like my quiet time. I love my family, but they're in the house all the time. And they're the people I want to love best, and they're the people that I want to care for the most and be kindest to. And that's hard to do when we're all sharing the same space like 24/7. So I found it hard to love my family well. I've found it hard to find the space that I need just for myself, and the quiet that I need for myself. But then there's all the other relationships, and it never was work to have relationships with people. I would just go to go to church or go to a school event or go, and I'd see people and the relationships would just happen there. And now every relationship is intentional and every social interaction is intentional, and it all takes negotiation because, well, are you going to be wearing masks? Am I going to be wearing masks? Are we going to be outside? Are we going to be inside? And what are your political views? And what are your, how are you dealing with issues of social injustice in our world? And like, it feels like everything's a negotiation, and that's pretty exhausting. Another thing that's been hard has been work. So I work with people, I work in ministry, and so everything that we knew how to do was all in person. And we were good at that. We were good at in-person, like incarnational, be with you, let's meet with Jesus together kind of ministry. And when COVID hit and we all went inside, you know, like a lot of places, we had to figure out how to do things differently. And so work over the past year has been reestablishing, experimenting, relearning, and it's been fun and it's been good, but it's just been really hard work, like all the time, every day. So the things that I've done that have helped, I rearranged my schedule. I used to get up really early to work out, to like exercise, and I rearranged my schedule and I said I need more sleep right now in this season, and so I sleep more. I exercise in the afternoon, and exercise has been really important. I have invested in relationships that have been good for my soul, so I've been trying to be intentional in my marriage and with my kids, because those relationships are the most important and they're the most present, but also reconnecting with a friend who just is good for me. And so she and I talk a lot more, you know, on the phone and via video, but we're connecting more than we used to. Bible study with a couple of friends has been really important in this season, just to have relational connection and connection with other people who are seeking God in this really hard season. Another thing I've done to cope is just really guarding my daily time with God. So that's been really important in this season in particular. And one of the kind of spiritual practices that's been most helpful to me is an examine, which is just kind of reflecting on where I've seen God in my day, or where I was less attentive to where he was, or I couldn't see him as well. And reflecting on that daily has just been helping me to kind of keep my eyes fixed on him and be centered and not so self-absorbed in this season, but kind of always looking for God and where he is. So praying has been really important in terms of just like, oh, it's not about me. It gets me outside of myself, and like God's still in charge. God's sovereign. He's over it all. And if I can stay centered on him, and I can fix my eyes on him, I'm less anxious about all of the things that would distract me. It's easy for us to look out in the world and look at what we can't do anymore, and what we're not allowed to do, and where we're inhibited by the things that are going on around us. Well, we can't be comfortable with our friends, and we can't have lots of people over for dinner, but that stuff doesn't throw God. God isn't inhibited by our circumstances. He still shows up. It's been amazing to see God at work on Zoom. I just didn't think like that could be a spiritual experience, and yet as I've prayed with people virtually, and as I've studied scripture with people virtually, like God's still there. Technology doesn't stop God. He can work wherever he wants to work, in whatever ways he wants to work, and so that's been good, and that's been learning for me.
I think when COVID first hit, I was nervous right away and afraid of the unknown. I teach piano lessons, and immediately that financial stream went away from me for the foreseeable future, and I was just unsure of what that would mean for my family. One thing that has been really helpful to me has been thinking of the Lord's Prayer, and different parts of that have been meaningful in different times. So right from the beginning, hallowed be your name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, just knowing that God is in control, and give us this day our daily bread, and knowing that God is going to provide for us which we need each day, and not worrying about what we're going to need tomorrow, that God's going to provide for us our daily bread each day that we need something, we can go to him. And even like living closely with my family, I'm an introvert, and so having everyone there in an enclosed space around a lot, like thinking about forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, just really thinking about community and being quick to be kind to the people around me and loving towards them, and knowing when to also ask for forgiveness when I need that for trespassing against others, in, you know, especially in my home as we're on top of each other. I think my faith has made a huge difference in the past year for me, because I'm able to really reframe everything through a lens of hope, and feeling just knowing that God is in control, and I don't need to have all the answers, and I don't need to be in control of all of the things that are unknown to me. That knowing, you know, the scripture that says nothing can separate us from the love of God, knowing that COVID can't separate us from the love of God, like none of the unknowns, disasters, natural disasters, divisiveness in our country, just different things that have been happening. I know that I have hope, and that my hope isn't in this world in front of me, but my hope is in the Lord.
It's been a difficult year overall for my family, no matter what. Right, really, at the beginning of the pandemic, or right before it hit, I lost my brother, and then within a couple months, we lost my sister. So it's oddly felt like a year of mourning, no matter what. It's been a difficult year. And it's been hard, especially with my sister. We didn't have our church community, who was such a big support throughout her illness. We didn't have all of you to be there to mourn with us, and, you know, to be that support. So it's felt like a year of loss, because in addition to that, of course, the way we worship in our church community has changed. The way I do my job and work with kids at school has changed, and I can't get as close to them as I feel like sometimes they need. There's been a lot of worry. And I'm just also missing the natural rhythms of life. We had weddings that got canceled, favorite students that I couldn't go to their graduation. Easter wasn't like Easter. Derek and I loved to travel, and we couldn't. This year we were so excited for VBS, because we were going to have all 4 of our grandchildren able to participate for the first time, and then we couldn't do that. So it's just been, I kind of see it as a year of personal loss, as well as a loss, obviously, to the whole world. We've been watching a lot of TV. But seriously, and also I've been knitting more than I usually knit, and those have all been great things. Talking on the phone, praying, but probably the thing that's helped me the most is my thankful journal. So I have this journal, started it, I don't know, years ago. I think it's a Lenten thing, like 1,000 things that you're thankful for. So every day I write whatever I was thankful for the day before. And it's been really helpful to remember, in the midst of all the sadness, like all the good things, like, wow, I'm more rested. My house is a little cleaner. I realized, like, when I get that phone call from a family member or a child or a church member, like I really joy in it because, you know, they're more infrequent. Truthfully, my faith has made all the difference. There was just too much this year, and I couldn't have made it through without my faith and having God be so present in my life. And back to my thankful journal, it's really, that reminds me of all of God's blessings, like the answered prayers, the joys in the midst of sorrow, the beautiful cards or small gifts, or people still dropping off meals, just like all those ways that God shows his presence. And the thankful journal kind of helped me remember that. Like, all right, yes, this is sad, but look at this beautiful blessing that came out of today. So I think that, my faith, truthfully, I don't know how I would have done it without God.
Well, the change was kind of forced on us as far as rules and regulations and the executive orders coming out of the state. And then, of course, we were also tasked with enforcing those rules and regulations. So, and it happened very quickly. There was no time to think about it. There was no time to plan. We can't work at home. We couldn't take a furlough. We were required to be there. We were required to act. And we dealt at first with the shortage of PPE. We had very limited amounts for just our guys and our department at first, so that was challenging. You add this to the stress that's already there. You add this to whatever situation that somebody's going through that we're responding to. You have that stress caused from the situation, and then you have that stress that's caused by the added stress of the COVID pandemic. The masks and the distance, and people's nerves were quite on edge. Yeah, I mean, my faith obviously is the major factor in how I survive or how I go on day to day. We were told that you have to keep your distance, and you have to wear a mask, and you have to wear your gloves, and you have to disinfect, and I would often think that Jesus healed lepers, and if he crossed the sea and healed the multitude of people, and laid his hands on the sick time and time and time again. If he can do that, then I can wear a glove, a mask, and interact with people. Jesus told us this was going to happen. This is not a surprise to him. This is planned long ago. So he's in control. He's always been in control, and I hold on to that fact, and that helps diminish the stress.